In an announcement that has garnered mixed reactions, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has said he will be stepping down in September and not fighting for a re-election. The decision comes at a time when the Kishida government has been facing flack over an alleged corruption scandal, rising cost of living and a falling yen. Before I get in my guests on the show, take a look at this report. Many in Japan say this is a once-in-a-generation political crisis. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's announcement of stepping down in September has sent an already unstable world into more uncertainty. Kishida said he will not seek a re-election as leader of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, or the LDP, which he says needs a new start. The 67-year-old LDP veteran is expected to step down as the Prime Minister after the party elects a new leader in September this year. Kishida, who has been Japan's Prime Minister since 2021, has been struggling with falling support in the wake of a corruption scandal involving his party, rising cost of living, and a slumping Japanese currency of yen. His approval ratings had plummeted to 15.5% last month, the lowest for a prime minister in Japan in more than a decade.
内外の課題にしっかりと取り組んでいくこと、これは大変重要なことであると思いますが、だからこそ、政治の信頼、国民からの信頼、これが大事だと思っています。こうした国民の共感や信頼、これを再び取り戻すことによってこそ、こういった政策というのは前に進めることができると信じています。そういったことから、この自民党は変わらなければならない、そして自民党が変わったということを示す第一歩が、私自身が総裁選挙に出馬しない、身を引くことであると判断して、今回の決断に至った。
As his popularity went south, many in Kishida's party have doubted whether he would be able to lead the LDP to victory in the upcoming general election in 2025. The Liberal Democratic Party has been the longest ruling party of Japan in power since 1955. As the LDP and Japan now look to find a new prime minister, the frontrunners include former defense minister and a vocal critic of the current political climate, Shigeru Ishiba; Taro Kono, the current digital transformation minister who narrowly lost to Kishida in 2021; and Toshimitsu Motegi, a longtime supporter of Kishida and LDP's general secretary. Even as the Japanese leadership scrambles through this domestic political instability, India, United States and China have their eyes closely on what happens next. A close ally of India and US, Japan's change of guard amid the rising Chinese threat in the South China Sea and the Asian continent is a cause of concern. India's shared interest with Japan of an inclusive and secure Indo-Pacific now faces the dilemma of who takes the reins from Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and how Japan's next premier navigates through troubled waters, literally and metaphorically. All right, let me welcome my guests on the show. I'm joined by Mr. Yasuhide Nakayama. He's the former State Minister of Foreign Affairs as well as Defense in Japan. I'm also joined by Dr. Jagannath Panda, Head Stockholm Center for South Asian and Indo-Pacific Affairs at the ISDP. Good evening and welcome to both of you. Mr. Nakayama, I'd like to start with you. This announcement has garnered mixed reactions. This has been shocking for the rest of the world. But was it expected in Japan, considering the fact that Fumio Kishida's popularity and in opinion polls has been reducing?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm honestly surprised that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who is also the president of the Liberal Democratic Party, has decided not to run in the next LDP leadership election. However, I think he made the decision now because he doesn't want to embarrass himself and wants to maintain his influence even after retiring as prime minister. The reason I am surprised is that most people in the political world thought he would aim for re-election. However, it seems that he made the decision to step down from the LDP leadership race to address the issue of money in politics, which is a scandal, as you mentioned that. As for what happens next, it's still unclear because not all candidates have been announced yet. We don't know who will win. The date for the LDP leadership election is expected to be decided on the 20th of this month. Once the schedule is set, we will gradually see who the candidates are. By the way, each candidate needs the support of 20 members of the parliament to run. This is the minimum requirement. In other words, no matter how much a candidate is talked about in the media, if they cannot get 20 members of parliament to support them, they cannot run. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Panda, coming to you, Fumio Kishida and his government have been embroiled in what was being called a fundraising scandal since the start of this year. But do you think it's just the scandal and the corruption charges or even the state of the economy in a post-COVID era that has led to the kind of frustration that the Japanese citizens might be feeling with the current regime?
Yes, I think there are multiple reasons why Kishida's popularity has gone down. One is everybody knows, as you rightly pointed out, is corruption scandal. But the most important issue for Japan's economy is that Prime Minister Kishida has not really been effective in terms of addressing the yen depreciation issue. And I think that has been a key issue for the Japanese economy. Japanese economy not in a very good shape for a long time. And on top of that, there has been, as you pointed out initially, there has been rises in the living cost. There has been no complementary approach about the national economic order between the corporate sector and the government sector. So for a number of reasons, Kishida has been criticized. Even the Kishida's foreign policy issues, foreign policy graphs has been quite impressive. He has managed well his external relationship of Japan with alliance partners like US, with South Korea. It has improved substantially with India. There is a kind of continuity has been maintained, but domestically it has been a not a very impressive innings for Kishida. And also in addition to that, I think what has been really most problematic for Kishida is that he has not been effective as a leader in terms of taking into consideration the fractions demand. And I think that has been a key issue because we know for a fact, as you rightly pointed out, LDP has been in power for a long time, since 1955. Prime Minister Abe has played a significant role over the last 2 decades to maintain that cohesion among the different factional groups within the LDP. But this time, I think Kishida has not really been successful going forward to the election, and therefore his popularity ratings has gone down, and probably he himself saw that he is incapable of managing the situation and winning the election for LDP.
Okay. Mr. Nakayama, you seem to be agreeing with the fact that it is the state of the economy as well, which is the primary reason why things went against Fumio Kishida. But why has the Kishida government not been able to cope with the post-COVID era, with the falling yen, with the rising cost of living? Is there some sort of complacency that has come into the LDP, considering that they've been ruling since 1955?
I think this time, why the Kishida-san, Prime Minister Kishida, is not so popular from the Japanese point of view. Unfortunately, he is very honest, and it's good. He's very honest, but on the other hand, people always think that the politician is a liar. Politician never take the risk. And Kishida-san has the guts to do that. But after Abe Shinzo assassination and Suga become a prime minister, and then Mr. Kishida become a prime minister. But unfortunately, all the media also criticize every single action of Kishida. So the people, even the lots of population in democratic nations never met the prime minister, the voters, only hear from the noise of the media. But so I think the Kishida-san's real image is not the voters never understands his honesty or his effort. As Mr. Doctor said,
interesting you say, Mr. Nakayama, that it was the media noise that went against him. Politics has always been a game of perception, and therefore, whatever Prime Minister Kishida did was, perhaps more of an onus on the government to reach out to the voters and send that message across. But also help me understand, Mr. Nakayama, how do voters, how do the Japanese see Fumio Kishida differently from former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo?
Yes. Abe Shinzo-san, the former Prime Minister Shinzo, he was very lucky, and also he was very good he has a very good sense to choose and select the human. This politician goes to this position, this post. So the human resource function was very good during the Abe administration. But the Kishida-san's, I think, even Kishida-san's right hand, which is Motegi-san, who is the Director General of LDP, even Kishida-san ordered him to become a LDP Director General. But I think he betrayed the Prime Minister, which is the leader of the LDP. And this kind of like a friction between these two gentlemen becomes a very nervous feeling towards the friends and the community inside of the LDP. And why I mentioned that the Director General Motegi's name, because he is in response to criticize all the messy gossip from the money in politics. And he break all the factions, including himself. He used to have faction, but this, break the faction, which he took as a reform. This is a reform, but on the other hand, it's very difficult to do next LDP leaders election. So this is going to become a very invisible balance of power inside of the LDP party, Liberal Democratic Party. So I think Kishida-san, even he wants
Dr.
to
Panda,
run again, but it's very difficult environment, honestly. Thank you.
Okay. It's probably the pressures within the party that has led to Prime Minister Kishida's decision. But Dr. Panda, can I also understand from you, how should the world be seeing this now, this change of guard that is expected after September in Japan? India has been a close ally with the Japan. We also have concerns with the Chinese rising expansionist policy in the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific region. How should we be viewing this now?
Yes, I think there are a lot of implications for Japan and Japan's foreign policy management post Kishida and after the election. And I think one of the most important chapter in Japanese foreign policy is how to manage the alliance politics, given the fact that there is a election going to happen in US in December, where there is a high possibility that probably Donald Trump might come back to power, though this is not a given. Japan will be under pressure how to manage its alliance partnership with the US. That would be the most important challenge. And also the further challenge is for Japan to manage the neighborhood politics, particularly its relationship with China, the economic ties with China, and particularly its relationship with South Korea, which was actually improving under Prime Minister Kishida. Kishida invested a lot in its relationship with South Korea, given the fact that North Korea is going on for a continuous missile test, nuclear test, and North Korea's relationship with China and Russia is actually gaining ground. Japan is under severe pressure. So there is a lot of political and foreign policy implications for Japan's future. And more importantly, for India, I think this is a wait and watch policy, because I think there has been a vacuum as far as the India-Japan relationship is concerned, even though under Prime Minister Suga, he was in power just for 1 year. And then under Prime Minister Kishida, even though we could assume that India-Japan relationship has progressed to some extent, but it has not been the same what it used to be under Prime Minister Abe Shinzo and Prime Minister Modi. So there has been a downturn in India-Japan ties. So the challenge is whether Japan will be continuing to emerge as a critical investor in India, and who will be the future Prime Minister, and how the future Prime Minister will look at India as a partner, given the fact that Japan's relationship with China matters and South Korea matters. So these are the policy challenges, and I think Waldo is going to watch very clinically and very closely the Japanese foreign policy and Japanese politics in times to come.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Nakayama, my last question to you. You've got frontrunners like Shigeru Ishiba, Taro Kono, and Toshimitsu Motegi. These are the names that have come up to succeed Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. If you had to place your bet on one person, who would it be?
I personally support Takaichi Sanae, who is a lady candidate for the LDP leaders election, but not on the list now. But actually, I used to belong to the Abe faction. And directly from Abe Shinzo, he called my phone and he ordered me to support Takaichi. So who is the number one person and the candidate who can follow real Abe politics and policy, including foreign policy, including security, all of the things? I think Takaichi-san, she is a current economic security minister, and she wants to run for this election.
Okay.
Thank you. And I hope
all right.
Japanese
Let's see
Prime
what
Minister
happens in your
will
country.
become a lady Prime Minister is also
sure, absolutely. I think that we all can hope for, that Japan does get a woman Prime Minister that will do good for the entire, entire women community in politics across the world. But we leave it there. Mr. Yasuhide Nakayama and Dr. Jagannath Panda, thank you very much to both of you for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective on this political uncertainty that now has gripped Japan. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on Nation Tonight. Thank you very much for joining us right now on Mirror Now. Up next is my colleague, Sneha Koshi, with Beyond the Headline.
Listen, there's a good insurance policy.
A good insurance policy. Let's ask AI. A policy